Hello and welcome back to another episode of the ShefF1 Podcast with myself, Rudy Brown, Seb Alston and Amy Hammerslag. Today's video is going to be predicting the 2025 grid lineup after the shock news that Lewis Hamilton will be joining Ferrari for next season. We have about, 13 drivers?
13 drivers.
13 drivers without a contract going into next year, and only 2 teams to have confirmed lineups. That's being Ferrari with Leclerc and Hamilton, and McLaren with Piastri and Lando Norris. So we're going to start in the reverse championship order from the 2023 Constructors' Championship. Amy, would you like to go first with who you think will drive for Haas?
So I've gone with a remain for Nico Hulkenburg.
Right.
Going to sign again. There's been rumours that he signed apparently until 2025, for 2025. However, he commented something on
he said it was like
Twitter.
a joke that was taken out of context, something like that.
I don't know,
So.
but I do think out of the 2 drivers there, he's going to remain. However, I think Kevin Magnussen's going to be replaced by, obviously, a young driver in Ollie Behrman.
Yeah.
I think it's the most obvious choice for me to pick on this whole prediction. And I think if he has a really good F2 season, it's definitely in the best team, best car. He's going to definitely be promoted up to F1, and I think that's the best team for him to do it in. So yeah, Ollie Behrman I've gone for, replacing Kevin Magnussen.
No, you're right with Nico Hulkenberg. He seems to be the more guaranteed current driver that has a more sort of likely chance of staying on the grid for next year. I think we can say he wiped the floor with Magnussen last year, big time. And then, yeah, Ollie Behrman, exciting young driver in Formula 2. Seb, do you agree, or have you got something different?
Unfortunately for the video, I do agree. So we don't have any conflict. I've gone for Ollie Behrman and Nico Hulkenberg. Ollie Behrman obviously got the 6 FP1 sessions this year with Haas.
Yes.
Yeah.
The link with the Ferrari junior program. So I think that there was obviously before, Leclerc going to Sauber, that was like the previous route. But with Audi coming in, I think that it's more likely that Haas will be used for that.
Yeah.
That sort of breeding ground for young Ferrari drivers. And yeah, I think he has to have a good F2 season. He did obviously last season, but he really has to kick on. I think he has to fight for the championship this year.
Are you just saying Haas over and over again on purpose, or is that unintentional?
It's not even unintentional. But yeah, he has to. I think he has to. And then Hulkenberg, yeah, he's experienced. There were rumours about him with Audi and Sauber, which could potentially throw a spanner in the works. Maybe that's an opportunity for Magnussen to stay.
Yeah.
I do think Haas will want at least one driver continuity. And I think if they have to choose, it'd be Hulkenberg. So yeah, that's what I've gone for.
Unfortunately, I also agree. I think Ollie Behrman, of course, showing great promise last year, absolute domination in the F2 Baku weekend, winning the sprint race, winning the feature race, and of course getting pole position in the qualifying session as well. He really is the real deal. I think he's only 18 years old as well, so that makes him eligible for the F1 Super License, and I'm sure a good result in F2 will secure enough points to get him on the grid next year. But it looks to be a very competitive F2 grid, so we'll have to wait and see with how Ollie Behrman compares.
Especially within his own team with Antonelli.
Yeah.
Like, that is, and apparently the testing, apparently he was like seconds above everyone else.
So the F2 drivers recently did a test. I'm not sure where it was, but it was in the wet and it was in F3 cars because there's obviously limited F2 car testing time. So I think at least the majority of the drivers took part in this test. And Ollie Behrman's soon-to-be teammate at Prema for this season, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, sick name. He is born to be a racing driver. Wrong language. But yeah, Kimi Antonelli, he I think came in 2 seconds quicker than everybody else in wet weather conditions. So Ollie Behrman has his work cut out for this year, that's for sure. Obviously with all the pressure as well, after a pretty successful rookie campaign last year.
We don't know how reliable that is, but
no, exactly.
But that name might come up later in the video. Just put that there.
Ooh, bit of foreshadowing. Okay, we'll move on to team number 2 now. Not quite sure
Sauber.
what to call them. We'll call them Sauber because that's what most broadcast teams will be calling them. Can't call them Kick. Can't call them Steak. Definitely can't call them Steak because that's also sort of up in the air now as well with all the gambling licenses with their sort of F1 My Team livery. But yeah, who have we all gone to drive for Sauber in 2025, Amy?
I've got 3, but I'm going to only say 2. I've actually come to a conclusion, and this may sound silly, but I've gone for it. I've gone for Valtteri Bottas to stay.
Okay.
I just think, I've put a reason actually, that he might as well, in a way, like he gets another year in F1 before it changes to Audi.
Yeah.
He's pretty comfortable in that seat. He knows they can trust him in that, knowing that he's not going to ruin it. But then, right, I've gone for Carlos Sainz.
Wow.
Because
early in the video, his name has come up.
Yeah.
Of course, Carlos Sainz recently announced that he will depart Ferrari at the end of this season, so leaving him with many options to go to different teams. But stake, I mean, that seems a little bit.
a bit of a downgrade from
Yeah.
Ferrari. But when I was trying to fit in, I couldn't put him into Mercedes. I couldn't put him into Red Bull. Couldn't put him really into Aston Martin.
So is this by process of elimination, or have you
I've got a reasoning. I think because I feel like if he's going to go to Audi, he is quite old now. Like he's coming up to 30. I think for the start of that journey, he wants to be there from the very beginning. I think he can't take a year out of F1, so he has to find a seat. And who says no to Carlos Sainz for a team like Sauber?
Yeah.
They're not going to say no to Carlos Sainz.
race winner, podiums, experience?
He's used to a Ferrari engine.
Yeah.
And I think for them, it'd be incredible to have him. Whether they could afford him, I don't know. But I think it'd be a good move for him in a sense that I couldn't put him in another top team.
No.
However, he gets a year experience there with, I guess, it won't be the same team, will it?
Sort of, yeah.
It
Yeah,
gets
pretty
used
much.
to it.
But Audi will bring better pedigree into
Yeah.
into Formula One than what would be provided by Sauber and kick and stake and whatever. Who knows? Obviously, ties with his dad as well.
Yeah.
I think his dad's got pretty close ties with Audi, and yeah, for him, they'll probably have enough money to afford his contract. It seems as though they'll be able to provide a car that can fulfill his sort of top end midfield needs. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, because that won't be until 2026, so a year after the season we're predicting. But yeah.
I think just to get settled. No, who says no? I think Carlos Sainz can't say no if he doesn't get that Mercedes seat or a Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
And he has to stay in F1 if he wants to, drive for Audi in 2026. So I think it works out for both of them in the end. So I've gone for Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas. I did put Porsche, but I'm just going to stay off taking any rookies there at the minute.
I completely forgot about Teo Porcher. No, the new F2 champion. That's pretty poor for me. Seb, have you thought about him at all?
Yes, I've gone for a mix then. I've gone for Carlos Sainz and Teo Porcher as my two drivers.
What a lineup that is as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Carlos, it's super risky. I think, as you said, if that Mercedes seat is on offer for him, I think he should go there. I think if the Red Bull seat's on offer, arguably, I think he should go there.
Yeah.
It is super risky, but with the new regulations in 2026 and Audi being a works team, they're going to be riding the engine. It could be worth the risk. Audi's their investment and commitment. I think the risk for it is, it has been questioned. Maybe there were rumors that they were going to pull out, but if they are committed, they have so much. They're huge. They're part of the VW brand, and we know how massive they are. And if they're really serious about it, that is a force to be reckoned with.
Definitely.
2025 is just going to be, it's a bit like, I think he's only going there because he's out of contract.
Yeah.
Going there for 2025 is just going to be a wasted year. They're still going to be 8th, 9th, quickest side without that Audi investment and new regulations. But yeah, it will be good to integrate himself into the team. And I think for him becoming a true team leader, having a team built around him, I think that'll be an opportunity that's probably too good to turn down, especially without the Mercedes and Red Bull. Teo Porcher, obviously he's in Super Formula this year, F2 champion. I think any F2 champion really does deserve a seat. He has a really good season last year.
Including Nick de Vries?
He deserved a chance and he got it. And
he did.
He proved that, he wasn't up to scratch. And I think that every champion should get that. Otherwise, where is the pathway?
No, I agree. I was just...
Yeah, and I think obviously even for Sauber, they'll want to show that their academy actually has a pathway into F1.
Yeah, definitely.
Teo Porcher is their sort of their golden child in their academy. I don't even know if they've got anyone else. I can't think of anyone.
No one's springing to mind, no.
And if they want more people to join it, especially when it comes to Audi, they need to show that, well, look, if you can be the next Teo Porcher. For Bottas and Zhou, they've both been underwhelming. And I think for them, they haven't really been able to show their talents. The car hasn't been good enough for them to show any highlight standouts. And I think that'll be their downfall. Yeah.
Downfall.
I think it's harsh on them because they haven't had the proper chance to prove themselves. But yeah, I think this is a lineup that Sauber can't turn down.
I have admittedly, I think I might change my mind on this as well, so I'm cheating a little bit because I completely forgot about Teo Porcher. So I've said Zhou Guanyu And that I think I'm pretty confident in, because even though Bottas has had better results on track and maybe even in the championships as well, Zhou coming in with the lack of experience, he's been okay. Obviously, it's hard to measure his progress considering how underwhelming that car has been, and considering how, Valtteri Bottas, apart from at the start of the 2022 season, his performances haven't been up to scratch either. But it's a case of, if you think about their contracts with stake and kick and whatnot, everything seems to be a little bit up in the air, and money just to keep afloat this season might be a little bit of an issue. And obviously Zhou Guan Yu bringing in a lot of money, that's probably how he got the seat in the first place. And he's not a terrible driver either, and he seems to be sort of, growing quite nicely into the team. He seems to be like a likeable guy. And then Audi can sack him off at the end of the season. It'll be pretty easy to sort of get him gone. But yeah, it's a case of just to keep the team afloat before Audi come in with their money for the season. And then I initially said Yuki Tsunoda, but I think I'm going to change that, and then I'm going to pair Zhou Guan Yu with Théo Pourchaire as well. Yeah, former F2 Championship rivals. But yeah, you both summed up Pourchaire pretty well. There's no reason why they wouldn't take him on. He's been their sort of prodigy for quite a few years now, and by no means he's a very talented driver. Okay, moving on to team number 3 now, known as RB, but no idea what to call them. We'll say Racing Bulls just out of force of habit, but of course formerly known as AlphaTauri, formerly known as Toro Rosso. Amy, who have you got to drive for RB in 2025?
I was really conflicted in my decision for who I was predicting here, but I have definitely gone for Liam Lawson. I think he's a definite.
Good pick.
Just because he's been promised a seat basically for next year. I think when he was racing last year, and in very small amount, however, he proved himself massively. And you were a big fan, Reedy.
Yeah, my Twitter just became a Liam Lawson fan account for a couple of months while he was in his brief F1 stint.
No, I think he was amazing, and he deserves that seat. But with the other seat partnering him, I struggle between two. However, I think there's one of them who's more likely to be promoted than the other, and that's why I'm going with Daniel Ricciardo to be at Racing Bulls in 2020.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Shock.
Would he agree to that, though? Would he really... what's in it for him, apart from, a pretty bog-standard drive if they don't close the gap to Red Bull?
I just can't see him moving to Red Bull. I really can't. I think it's an opportunity for him to be in F1. I think for him to even come back shows, I guess, a determination, a want, a need. So I think he'd be at it until it's literally impossible for him. And I think if he ever got moved from even being in the Red Bull, sister team, the academy, I guess, as a junior team, how old is he, like 32?
Yeah, 33.
Older.
I think until he is literally removed from that position, I think he'll keep going until he can get back in the Red Bull. However, I have thought about him being promoted, and I do think that he'd be happy as a second driver at Red Bull. He'd be going with a new the main Red Bull. He'd be happy going into that, a different mindset from obviously previously being there, and he's be going for podiums and the odd win and pole positions, and he'd be happy with that. But other than marketing wise, I just don't think Red Bull would want him. I think they need to look for, I guess, their next Max Verstappen.
Yeah, but would you not say he's arguably the most marketable driver on the grid?
I would, maybe other than Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, true.
But that would be the only reason, and I think Red Bull are more a team that they go for ability over marketing. I think when they had him as that, the reserve driver, was an ambassador.
Yeah.
I think that was a more preferable position for them to be in, but to actually race for the team, I think they are more looking into the future now.
Yeah.
And they have to, because they tried to do that with Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, and it didn't work. And they've got amazing drivers. You've got Iwasa, you've got
Enzo Fittipaldi.
Yeah, you've got obviously Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson. So I think that's where they need to look, and I don't think they can be living in the past with Daniel Ricciardo. So that's why I've gone with him remaining there at Racing Bulls, because I don't think they want to move him out the family. But I just can't see him being promoted, which I think is quite a popular opinion for 2026. But I just don't think this 2024 season will be good enough for him to prove that he can do that.
Interesting. I mean, he showed promise a little bit, especially on his sort of return from injury. He looked to be slowly but surely getting back to the Daniel Ricciardo of old with some, very consistently, sound performances. Nothing sort of extraordinary, but he seems to be back on the up. in a more sort of familiar setting. But Seb, how do you think RB are going to line up for 2025?
I've gone for Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, but I really like that argument. Sort of, it's like swaying me. I'm sort of doubting myself.
Wow.
I do think that, Ricciardo being at Racing Bulls, I think that, yeah.
Is that your answer?
No, I'll stick with what I've gone for. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure anymore. I've said for Tsunoda, it's arguably too early to promote him, which is something I've also contradicted on previous podcasts.
Well,
I've said
he's
that
been at the team for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Now.
But he's still really young. Obviously, with Gasly and Albon, they might have learned from them. Obviously, they don't want to promote people too early.
Yeah.
And he is still a little bit immature at times. Last season was a step up in maturity, I think, but still, I'm not sure. I think there's obviously those Aston Martin, Honda rumours. So I don't know whether Red Bull would be thinking, if we promote him now and we only give him 2 years, is he always going to be thinking, I'm just going to leave? Because chances are he's going to get outperformed by Max. He's going to get smashed by Max.
Oh, yeah.
And then immediately he's going to be thinking, I'm going to move on. So I think that maybe Red Bull will think, we'll sway away from promoting him. I think Liam Lawson might be the longer term solution to that second seat. I think Tsunoda's, as you say, going to stay. He hasn't really got anywhere else to go. I don't think Aston Martin are going to. Well, we'll see what Aston Martin do.
Yeah, because it's Honda, isn't it?
If they do go to Honda, obviously with Red Bull having sort of the Cosworth engines coming in, and it's not Cosworth, it's Ford coming in. It's just force of habit calling it Cosworth. But yeah, they've got Ford engines coming in 2026, I think.
I think so. And then that's when Honda go to Aston Martin.
So that could be a huge influence behind where Yuki Tsunoda ends up. Maybe at the end of 2025 rather than for the 2025 season itself. Of course, Honda being a huge part of Yuki Tsunoda's career. So yeah, it would seem pretty normal and natural for him to make the switch to Aston Martin. I'm with you, Seb. Even though I changed my mind on my previous prediction, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson as well. It seems as though Red Bull really want to promote Daniel Ricciardo to the main team. They are the strongest rumours, particularly with Sergio Perez's poor performances. The threat of Daniel Ricciardo coming in seems to be a more talked about, idea of replacement than Tsunoda, than Liam Lawson, than anybody else in their weaponry. But I feel as though, as well, from Daniel's personal standpoint, why would he be at RB again for another year? He'll be 34 by the time 2025 starts. So there isn't really much in it for him, and I think it all depends on how this season goes for him in 2024. If he performs well, then promotion to Red Bull is on the horizon. If he doesn't perform well,
there's no chance they'll promote him.
No, it's because it wouldn't be fair. Especially if Yuki Tsunoda wipes the floor with him as well, then it would be the right decision to promote Yuki instead. But I do think it will be a strong season from Ricciardo if that racing up, that RB car, whatever it means, if that RB car is up to standard and isn't too undrivable, is nice and reliable as well, and maybe if they sort of design it around his driving style a little bit, that might see a likely promotion for Daniel Ricciardo. And I think that's how it will pan out, to be honest. I think he will outperform Tsunoda, not convincingly, but enough for Red Bull to say, we want him back in the main team now, because obviously it is a marketing stroke of genius as well. Williams, Amy, big talk about Williams, especially considering Alex Albon is potentially up for grabs, although no one really knows. Will he stay at Williams, or have you got a different driver pairing?
I have gone for Alex Albon to stay at Williams. I don't know, I'd love him to go to a bigger team. I always thought he'd go to Ferrari. That is where I always thought if he was going to move anywhere and Carlos Sainz was to, be demoted, I'd see Alex Albon go into Ferrari, but obviously that is not happening now. And I really, as much as I think it would work at Mercedes, I still can't see it type thing. I can't see him in that sort of race suit. I know that's silly, but I couldn't see him go. I just grabbed the mic. I couldn't see him going there. But going to Red Bull as well, I've seen stuff about that. I don't think he'd do that to himself going back there. I think it was too much of a mental toll on him. So I've gone with him staying there. And then as his teammate, I have got 3 here. But I am going to say one. I've got Perez.
Okay.
Yeah, future predictions showing. Drugovic, I think he really deserves a seat for me as a junior driver, and that's someone who I just would like to see get a seat. Yeah. Whether it's at Williams, I don't know. But I think I might go for Vesti.
Frederick Vesti?
Yeah. I think he's a Mercedes.
He is a Mercedes junior,
I think he, obviously the ties with Williams, there's a good relationship there.
I mean, interesting you don't mention like Franco Colapinto and Zach O'Sullivan competing in F2 this year.
Is it? I don't know. I feel like these are just names that are surrounded, always being with F1 and always being strongly linked. And I think he's quite recognisable member of the Williams family, Vesti. I think they love to promote him, and I think that's the place he'd go if they can put him there. So yeah, Alex Albon and Vesti going into 2025.
So you're saying Frederick Vesti is your...
Frederick Vesti, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, runner-up last year in F2, I'm pretty sure. Strong F3 career in particular. Seemed to stagnate a little bit in F2, but, pretty impressive and consistent year last year. As you say, Mercedes Junior, strong ties with Williams. Although if Williams do start to make the steps forward, are Mercedes going to want to send drivers down to a team that might be a competitor in just a couple of years' time? We'll have to wait and see. Seb, do you agree or disagree?
I disagree with Vesti, but Albon, I've gone for Alex Albon, pretty much exactly the same points you've gone for.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure about the Red Bull rumours. One of the things, I don't think they'd go behind the back of Ricciardo. I don't think they'd go behind his back to be like, promising him that he's going to get the promotion, but then going, Albon, actually, we're going to get him in. I don't think it makes sense for him to go back to Red Bull, even though I think he would accept it. Mercedes or Aston Martin, I think are a safer bet, and I think he could. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think staying at Williams and building the team around him, I think that's a smart move for him if he ever wants to really compete at the top, even though obviously it looks a long way off at the moment. Yeah. He's got the full back in the team, and I think he's going to stay there. I've gone for Kimi Antonelli as the second choice. I think that is, for me, the logical move. There's so much hype around him at the moment. Yeah. It's so dependent on his F2 season. He's at Prima. He's got the right team around him. He's got all the right equipment around him. He's got the right people. There aren't that many excuses for him. I know Toto Wolff has come out and said he doesn't have to perform at the top.
Apart from the fact that he's a literal child. I mean, if we take that into consideration.
I think, but he can't have a really off season. I think that if he finishes outside the top 10 in a Prima, I don't think he can really have the hype around him will go, and he's not going to get that Mercedes seat anytime soon. I think he's going to have a really strong season. Obviously, with those rumours about him being quicker than everyone else in that testing thing, I'm not sure how believable that is, but
I want to believe it though, because this kid seems like the real deal. To be fair,
I think Formula Regional, Formula 4, he's crushed it all. I don't think he's going to win the title, but I think by the end of the season he'll get in race wins. And then you look at that, he'll be only 18. He's got enough super license points.
Yeah.
I think he will go to Williams. I don't think Mercedes step is too early. Everyone wants to compare him to Max Verstappen. Verstappen at Toro Rosso when he was 17, 18. I think that's what they're going to try and do, Mercedes. And I think I think going there for a couple of years, I think that's perfect.
I'm with you both. I'm saying Albon will stay because there's lots of rumours that he'll be off to Red Bull, but I think for him, it doesn't really make much sense. I think it will just be another, not a carbon copy, but it will be very similar to his first stint at Red Bull. Max, obviously, at this point, dominating anybody and anyone that tries to get in his way, whether it's teammates or someone at a different team in the championship fight. I say championship fight with big air quotes because there isn't really one. And with Albon, okay, sure, he's a much better driver now. He's got more experience under his belt, been putting in some cracking performances for Williams last couple of years. And so maybe he'll get one or two more podiums here and there if he were to return to Red Bull. But Red Bull are going to continue to build the team around Max. Their car is even quicker now than it was when Max and Albon were first teammates. And so it's a case of, I don't really see the benefit of Albon going to Red Bull because he just won't beat Max Verstappen. And then this is based on other predictions. His teammate will be Carlos Sainz.
Wow.
I think...
What a shock.
Because this goes hand in hand with the prediction that I think Williams are cooking, basically. Okay. I think it's a case of, like you say, James Vowles said that 23 and 24 were years where they could make mistakes. He even said 2025 wouldn't be the be-all and end-all if they don't get it fully right. But James Vowles, in my eyes, is an absolute genius, okay? Yeah. And they've got Alex Albon, who's been putting in amazing performances. The car's been taking steps forward. They did really well in the Constructors' Championship last year in comparison to sort of years prior. They're definitely on the up. And who knows, the regulation changes in 2026 could make Williams a really, really appealing team that you want to drive for. And so Carlos Sainz, it might not be immediate success for him, but he's very used to driving in the midfield, the lower end of the midfield as well. And then in 2026, he'll be in a position to, with Alex Albon, to maybe fight for podiums or at least good points and sort of assert themselves in the midfield more than they have done this season. So I'm saying Carlos Sainz.
Wow.
Which is bold.
That's interesting.
It is bold, and it's also probably unlikely. But if everything that I predict pans out in the way in which it does,
he's going to look like a genius.
Exactly. So maybe, who knows? And of course, as well, they might have a bit more cash to spend if they do better and better in the championships as the years go by. And so they'll be able to give Carlos a nice cushy contract. We'll move on now to, I believe, Alpine is the next team in the reverse championship order from last year. Amy, we'll start with you again. Who do you think will drive for the French outlet?
Gone quite boring here. I've kept it the exact same. Ocon and Gasly are going to be there. I thought about them going to Mercedes, both of them. There's been comments this week by Ocon in saying that, I'm always still close with Toto and there's always links with Mercedes. So you never know there with both of them. But I think it's worked really well, actually, the partnership between them for how much it was being hyped up that they hated each other, and it goes back to their families. And actually last season it weren't anything really to do with them as drivers, it was the car that was just awful.
Honestly, in my brain over my heart, I think that's like Gasly and Ocon is the most logical. I do think both are wanting to leave though.
Yeah.
But I've gone for Ocon and Duan.
Oh, okay.
Which is a bit, I think that's just from heart, as you'll be able to tell where Gasly goes later. Ocon, obviously, as you said, getting the rumours rolling with the Mercedes thing. I think they both want to leave. I think there's always been these rumours that they've seen like the Alpine project and the infrastructure, and they're like, probably not as good as we thought.
I mean, it's been false promises from Alpine since they were Renault.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100 race plan. all of that
exactly.
Stuff.
You remember the proposal they offered to Daniel Ricciardo? We'll be winning races in 2 years' time, and then you look at how mediocre they were in 2019. Of course, taking steps forward in 2020 and 2021, but then,
not to the level that they would have wanted.
No, exactly, and they definitely stagnated this season. That's for sure. Really unreliable
went
car.
Backwards.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know what you mean by saying both drivers probably do want to leave.
Yeah, and I think also at the start of the season, there's also like already rumours, and they've already basically confirmed that they're going to be starting on the back foot a bit. But they released their car design, and it was the actual car that they kept banging on about.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new radical design or whatever, and they're saying that they're taking 2 steps back, but hopefully to make 3 or 4 steps forward throughout the season.
When realistically it might be half a step.
Yeah.
Knowing Alpine in there.
I think both are going to be looking to leave, and I think that for the other teams out there, I think Pierre Gasly is a better proposition.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think he'll leave, but I think he'll leave. I don't know. This is such a wishy-washy prediction. Jack Doohan, I think, will just come in because no one else wants to go to Alpine, and that'll be their only option. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit wishy-washy, but for the content, I've gone for Jack Doohan and Esteban Ocon.
I am getting a little bit paranoid because neither of you have mentioned him, but isn't Victor Martins an Alpine driver?
He was and obviously he was best performing rookie in F2 last year.
Rookie of the year, the Antoine Hubert Award, which is,
Yeah, and I think he could put pressure on if he goes and wins F2, which is a possibility.
Yeah, he's top.
I think he's definitely up
driver,
there.
Yeah.
He's a little bit, I think he's 22 now.
Yeah.
He spent a long time in F3. I think there's not a lot of hype around him in the terms of him being generational, but if he goes and puts a really strong year and Gasly or Ocon leaves, it will be between him and Doohan for that second seat.
I mean, for me,
it just depends,
personally say he's a hotter prospect than Jack Doohan is, which is a bit of a claim. But from what I've seen from Victor Martins, I've been more impressed, especially with his rookie year last year. Top performance from him in F2. But I'm with you both. Well, I say with you, but I'm definitely with Amy in that Ocon and Gasly will be the partnership for next year. It's boring, but honestly, so are Alpine.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's quite fitting, really. We'll move on to the next team because there isn't really much else to say. Am I right in saying it's Aston Martin we have next? Yeah. Amy, who have you got in store for their driver lineup?
I struggled with this one. I really wanted to think about it, wanted someone exciting, but it is boring, and I've gone with Alonso and Stroll. Alonso, for me, was someone who I considered potentially going to Red Bull, which could, I'd love the thought of that, but I just don't think it would happen.
Imagine though, that would be so.
I think it'd be
so
incredible.
Funny.
He would have been to Ferrari, would have been to McLaren.
I mean, it nearly happened when they got rid of Sebastian Vettel. I'm pretty sure. But
enough of Red Bull. I have kept him at Aston Martin, and I've obviously partnered him with Stroll. I mean, it's obvious until, I guess, when Lawrence Stroll leaves. There has been talks about it, though.
Yeah.
That moving on and selling
I'd take that
on.
with a pinch of salt, to be honest. Nothing's really gaining any traction.
But if I had to say another driver, if one of them two were to move or leave, because I think the only way Stroll would leave is not to another team in F1, but just to another motorsport category. Yeah. He'd never go to another team. I couldn't see it anyways, because he's not good enough in my opinion. But I'd love to see, and I've mentioned this name before, Felipe Drugovich. I love him. I think he's a great driver, and it's so unfortunate that he's not been able to get a seat yet. And obviously Aston Martin reserve driver. So
no, he did come to mind for me, to be fair. But Seb, I'll let you predict yours.
I've gone for Drugovich.
Wow.
I've gone for Alonso and Drugovich. I think
that was so unnecessarily smooth as well, by the way.
Alonso, obviously there's rumours about maybe Mercedes. That would be mental as well. That'd be really exciting. But I think staying at Aston Martin's the most likely option.
Yeah.
He has shown in the past he can move to another team in a heartbeat. His loyalties aren't anywhere. But I think he seems different with Aston Martin. Seems to really get on with the team and really appreciate them. So I think he'll stay. And I think Drugovich, he's someone I'm not 100% sure on. I know he obviously won F2 and he was impressive that year, but I'm still not convinced by him. I do think Stroll staying is maybe more likely, but if they want to progress as a team and they do really want to compete at the top, they have to change. I do think they'd want a bigger name than Drugovich as well, so I do think someone like an Albon or a Tsunoda is likely potentially in a couple of years' time, but I can't see any of those happening right now. But I think Drugovich, again, like I think it was the Sauber one with Porsche, I think they need to promote someone from within their junior program just to show it is possible working. If they want to promote it to other drives and show that it is actually a pathway. So and again, as I said with Porsche, he's an F2 champion. He deserves a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
He deserves to show that there is that pathway again from F2 to F1, and you don't have to win it in your first year you don't have to be this incredible prodigy to get a chance in F1. I don't think so. I'd like to see him in F1.
My prediction, Lance Stroll will stay put as long as his dad's there. He's pretty much got a contract. Well, it's not necessarily confirmed. It's going to be Lance Stroll in that seat. Otherwise, Christmas dinners will be very, very awkward. And then to partner up with Lance Stroll, bit of a spoiler alert for future predictions. I've got Sergio Perez.
Wow.
Making a return to his former team, of course, when it was Force India and Racing Point. Yeah, I think, get Perez back in the familiar setting. I also think that Aston Martin aren't going to have a great year this year. I think their performances towards in the second half of the season that's just finished, they certainly went downhill a little bit. And I think that will continue, not necessarily because their car will be terrible, but I think the teams around them will continue to make greater progress and they will leave Aston Martin behind a little bit. And so I think that will incentivize your classic Fernando Alonso jump the gun, I'm going to lead the team now, and with no repercussions, and he will move elsewhere. He'll stay on the grid. He won't retire, I don't think.
For one of the top three teams, then there's only two left because we don't know Ferrari.
We know Ferraris.
Excited to see where you go for there.
So we have Mercedes and Red Bull. We'll do Mercedes first. Amy, again, starting with you. George Russell is confirmed contractually to be driving for Mercedes, and chances are he will be. But who have you got to be his teammate? Oh, let's just... you've got George Russell in there, right?
Russell,
okay, so who will be George Russell's teammate in 2025?
I have gone for a very exciting Kimi Antonelli.
Ooh, wow. He was my first pick, I have to admit. I have since amended that, but he was my first pick.
I just think he's going to win F2. I do. And
wow.
And that's my prediction. I think Ollie Behrman's going to be close, and he's going to be his nearest competition. I think he's just so exciting.
Yeah.
And this is what Mercedes needs. They've had, a 7-time world championship with Lewis Hamilton for 11 years now.
Yeah.
And they need someone who's got a pedigree of exciting fans. And I think it'd be quite a sting for someone like Ferrari if they got him, because he's Italian and he's the first Italian racing driver for definitely a good one since
Antonio. There was Antonio Giovinazzi. And then before him there was Alexander Ross. Or was he American? I think Rossi was American, yeah. So and then Fisichella before that. No one's springing to mind.
These last 10, 15 years.
The Italian fans are the most passionate about, and to have one of their drivers go into Mercedes, and obviously Hamilton goes Ferrari. Maybe, and I don't think it's going to be all to do with that, but I think it'd be a sting. But like we've been speaking about, it shows that definitely, junior, drivers, like being able to get into their teams, it works. It shows that F2 is a pathway into F1, and what better way if he goes and wins it in his rookie season by a country mile. I just think he's going to have this crazy season, and I think Mercedes have no choice but to say come into our team, because I think he's just that exciting. He's so exciting. George Russell's going to be there. He's going to be there for a few years, going to be the more experienced driver, going to be able to help. And that's who I've gone for.
That would be so cool to see. Seb, who have you predicted to be George Russell's teammate, assuming that George Russell is your other choice? Okay.
I've gone for something I said in the Lewis Hamilton video. I've gone for Pierre Gasly.
Oh, yeah.
An absolute pipe dream. I'm just trying to wish it into existence, basically. But I've got some justification. Obviously, there were rumours a couple of years ago when he did really well at AlphaTauri. He's outperformed Ocon last year and, shown there were, obviously there's still doubts because of that Red Bull spell when he went to a new team, well, it was sort of a new team, and he just didn't adapt, and he just obviously battered out of the park by Verstappen. But going into Alpine, he proved that he can adapt to a new team pretty quickly, and he worked well with Ocon, which I think, that's obviously he being able to work well with a driver he doesn't even like, and I think he gets along with Russell quite well. So
yeah. I
think he'd obviously make the move, Gasly. He's not going to turn that down.
No, of course
he
not.
wouldn't cost an arm and a leg, and I think he'd also I think he would accept a shorter term contract to go to Mercedes, take that risk. I think that would work well for the team, because obviously if he comes in and he's amazing, they can obviously offer him a longer contract. And if he isn't quite the driver they're looking for, put Antonelli in Williams, which I've said.
Yeah.
Then in a couple of years' time, a year time, get him in, upgrade him to the Mercedes full team, I guess you call it.
Yeah, the works team.
And then I think I don't think there's a risk to the move, and I think it could. There's nothing about it that would be bad, I don't think.
I mean, yeah,
I'm not sure.
I don't agree, but I like the prediction. I mean, I no, it was a good argument, but I just don't see it happening. Like I can't. There's no intellectual way of putting it, really. Like I can't back it up. I just don't see it happening. Although the prediction I'm about to drop is probably a little bit more unrealistic. I'm saying to be George Russell's teammate in the 2025 season, his very good friend Fernando Alonso, to make the jump from Aston Martin. Because if Mercedes make the right steps forward and Aston Martin take the wrong steps back, it just seems like the logical place for Alonso to go if they are fighting at the front again. Obviously, a great team to drive for. Obviously, Fernando Alonso has very high expectations, and I think if Mercedes make the correct progress, they will fulfill that for him. He gets on really well with George Russell. They've got the money to pay his contract. Although it hasn't really been reported on much, it just seems like a move that would make total sense to me. And all the I's get dotted, all the T's get crossed, and I don't know why it just fits. I don't know where. Maybe when the both parties sort of realise that it would be a good move, then that might come into play, but who knows. So we have one team left, and one of the drivers has got a confirmed spot on the grid for 2025. We're of course talking about the reigning Constructors Champions, Red Bull Racing, and their reigning Drivers Champion, Max Verstappen. So Amy, for our final round of predictions for the video, who do you think will be alongside Max Verstappen in 2025? I
think it's pretty clear who I'm going to choose, but I just want to mention a name first. I think I don't know how it could logistically work, but Lando Norris.
Whoa! No. I was not expecting that.
No.
I mean, he's just signed a contract, although so did Lewis Hamilton.
Exactly.
So
this is what's made me at least mention him in a way for me, because Lewis Hamilton, broke his contract and has gone to Ferrari, and it was a shock move.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a multi-year contract at McLaren for Lando, and we don't actually know what the details are, how long it is, or anything about it. And I do think McLaren they're going to do something this season. I do think that. But what if they don't? Is my just my little inkling is he has to move for me. I think if McLaren are not competing for, podiums, if they start this season as badly as they did last season, for me, Lando Norris has to go if he wants to do amazing things with his career.
Yeah.
I think McLaren have paid him a lot of loyalty, and he's, paid them back. However, I think it would be time for him to look at himself in the mirror and realise that it's going to be a good few years for McLaren until they need to be where they need to be. Unless, and I do think they will do this, and I hope they do this, as I'm wearing my McLaren top, that they are going to be the second best team next season. But we'll go into that, and I'm sure in another video. But yeah, I think Lando Norris would have to look at Red Bull, and Red Bull, I think, would love to have him if they do not excel and meet expectations or what they've promised him for him to sign that contract. However, what I do think will happen, definitely, if Lando Norris is an extreme one, but Yuki Tsunoda's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, we established that at the start of the video, really.
Yeah, I think he's just going to be promoted, and I think it's, like I said, to show that, the academy works for them, that he is a junior driver, Daniel Ricciardo is not.
No.
And I think they need to look to the future for them. I think next season, another prediction for next season, but I think Tsunoda's going to wipe the floor with Ricciardo.
Wow. Okay. I mean,
and I love Daniel. I love Daniel, but I just didn't love it when he was back last season, and it was a shock for me. Like, it was great,
it's just that gut feeling that you can't really sort of. It's inexplicable, really. But yeah, Seb, you were almost swayed by Amy at the start of the video.
But I've still gone for Daniel Ricciardo.
You've still gone for Daniel Ricciardo.
I think obviously he didn't have the most incredible performances when he came back to AlphaTauri last year, but that performance in Mexico, he was 4th in qualifying, 7th in the race, and I think just if he keeps performances not every week like that, because he can't do that, but if the Visa cash out Red Bull is up there and he's able to get points consistently and just stay in and around Yuki, might not even beat him. I think they've basically already promised him, and I don't even know if it's logical for them, Red Bull, to do this, but I've said here that maybe for 1 year they get him in. See how he does. If he does really well, then obviously keep him on. And if he doesn't, then that Albon 2026 news, that rumours that have come out, maybe that makes sense there to then bring him in. And yeah, I think that's what will happen.
I mean, I just echo your thoughts completely. Not to sort of abruptly round out this episode, but I know, I'm the same. Daniel Ricciardo will be, my prediction is that he will be Max Verstappen's teammate for 2025. It just seems to be like it's the move that they want to happen. I don't want to say written in the stars, but it seems like a fitting comeback. Yeah. Especially considering if he's still not lost it yet, and he's still eligible and still good enough to drive for Red Bull, why not? You know, It would be nice. Well, I'm not like the most enormous Daniel Ricciardo fanboy. He sort of deserves that shot at the top again, I suppose, because of, what he's contributed to the sport. So, yeah, I think it will be another call-up for Daniel Ricciardo to Red Bull for the second time in his career now. But that's it. That's all 20 drivers, all 10 teams done and dusted. So I think we should round out the episode now. Thank you very much for watching or listening or however you've consumed this. If you'd like to sort of check out any of our other stuff, you can find us on YouTube, which is most probably where you're watching this, unless you're watching us on TikTok or Instagram, where you can find our shorter content that's sort of condensed quite nicely into bite-sized pieces. Or if you just want to listen to the show, you can check us out on Spotify. We've got a new slot on Forge Radio. We didn't know what it would be this time last week, but you can check us out broadcasting, I say live. It will be on the airwaves on Forge Radio from 5 till 6 every Friday for the foreseeable future, and Apple Podcasts as well. So that's Spotify, Forge Radio, and Apple Podcasts. Seb and Amy, thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedules now with the second semester of university for coming back on. And if you want to get a bit more ShefF1 fix away from Formula One in particular, you can check Seb and Amy out making an appearance on Zane Likes to Talk on Forge Radio. I think, will that be available on Spotify afterwards as well?
No idea.
We'll have to wait and see.
We'll put it in the description.
It'll be on Mixcloud at least.
Yeah, definitely. So you can check that out as well for something more personal and away from the motorsports side of things. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the support that we're getting on mostly our YouTube videos as well, because that has been much stronger than we thought, and we do really appreciate the views, the likes, comments, anything. Just send it our way.
Even all the hate.
Yeah, some of the comments. I mean, the hate comments are just funny. Like,
Womp
womp. Anyway, I was agreeing with him as well. That was the thing. But he womp me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next week for some more in-depth predictions about the 2024 season and a bit of a news roundup as well. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.